For decades, there's been this fragile balance of terror, right? A shadow war fought with proxies and secret attacks. Well, it just shattered. So what happens when that shadow war explodes right out into the open?
This is the date. This is the moment, a conflict that had been simmering for years, a war of spies, cyber attacks, and militias fought all across the Middle East, finally boiled over into direct, open warfare.
You see, for years, the US, Israel, and Iran were tangled up in what experts call a shadow war. Basically, it meant using other groups to do the fighting, launching surgical strikes here and there, all carefully measured. It was all designed to avoid the unbelievable cost of a full-scale war. But on this day, that unspoken agreement went up in flames.
And it had a name, Operation Epic Fury. That was the code name for the joint U.S.-Israeli military operation that kicked off in the dead of night, an operation that would redraw the entire strategic map of the Middle East, literally, in an instant.
Okay, let's just get to the raw facts here. This wasn't just another airstrike. This was a decapitation. Israeli sources confirmed it. They'd apparently gotten critical intelligence about a huge attack being planned, so the operation zeroed in on a high-level meeting. In the space of a single minute, across 2 different sites, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, and 40 of his top officials were killed. A move like this, it's just completely unprecedented.
So, how on earth did we get here, right? How does a proxy conflict that's been going on for decades suddenly blow up into a direct attack on a nation's leader? To really get that, we need to go back and look at the steps that took everyone up this ladder of escalation.
So, for the longest time, this was just the way things were done. The thinking on all sides was, look, an open war is just too destructive, too costly for everyone. So it's better to stick to these indirect fights that we can, contain. But as we're about to see, a string of events started to tear that unwritten rulebook to shreds.
And this timeline, it's absolutely crucial. It really starts heating up in April 2024. Israel hits an Iranian diplomatic building in Syria. That action alone just blurred all the old lines of engagement. Then, just 12 days later, Iran retaliates with its first ever direct attack on Israel. You fast forward to June of 2025, and now Israel is running a sustained bombing campaign inside Iran, with the U.S. helping on defense. You see, each step made the next one seem possible, leading right to February 28th, the shadow war was officially over.
Okay, so whenever something this big happens, you know the debate is going to start raging immediately. Was Operation Epic Fury a necessary, legal act of self-defense, or was it a massive violation of the very rules that are supposed to keep the world from chaos?
So you've got 2 sides to this legal battlefield. On one hand, the U.S. and Israel point to Article 51 of the UN Charter, the inherent right of self-defense. They say they had solid intelligence of an imminent, massive threat and that this preemptive strike was their only real choice. They also claimed that diplomatic buildings, like that consulate in Damascus, were being used for military operations which would make them a legitimate dual-use target. But on the other hand, critics are shouting about Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, which basically says you can't just use force against another country. They argue that embassies and consulates are untouchable under the Vienna Conventions and are considered protected civilian sites under the Geneva Conventions.
And this really gets to the heart of the whole problem, doesn't it? The entire system of global diplomacy is built on the idea that these places are safe zones, that they're off limits. But what happens when one country claims those safe zones are being used to plan a war? It's a question with no easy answer, and it is central to this whole conflict.
Legal debates are one thing, but the reality on the ground, well, the consequences were immediate and they were devastating. This new, open conflict came with a price, and it was paid in blood and fire.
The scale of this opening attack was just immense. I mean, U.S. Central Command reported over 1,000 targets were hit inside Iran in just the first 48 hours. We're talking everything from stealth F-35s to massive bunker-busting bombs, hitting missile sites, command centers, ships, even submarines.
And of course, with that kind of scale, there's a human cost. Iranian state media, getting their numbers from the Red Crescent, reported over 200 dead and almost 750 injured. The U.S. also took its first losses of the campaign, 3 service members killed in action during Iran's retaliatory strikes.
And Iran's response, it was fast and it was widespread. They launched ballistic missiles and swarms of attack drones that didn't just hit Israel, they turned this into a regional war from day one. U.S. bases all over the region were targeted. 8 other Arab countries reported missile activity, and direct strikes on Israel killed multiple people.
Tehran was sending a very loud, very clear message. This war is not staying inside our borders.
Now this is where the whole story takes a really fascinating and, frankly, unexpected turn. The thinking in the West was pretty clear. You take out the leadership, and the Iranian people, who have been suffering under that regime, will rise up, and the whole thing will collapse from the inside. But that's not what happened at all.
You have to understand, inside Iran, there's this deep national fear of something they call Syrianization. It's a powerful word for their absolute nightmare scenario, their country getting torn apart by civil war and foreign powers, just like what happened in Syria.
And here's the massive irony. That external threat, the fear of their country completely disintegrating, was so powerful that it created this huge rally around the flag effect. It actually brought together a lot of Iranians, even people who hated the government, against what they saw as a common enemy trying to destroy their nation. The regime collapse that was hoped for, it never happened.
So, what does all of this mean for the future? We've gone from a quiet, simmering conflict fought in the shadows to a blazing hot war fought out in the open with missiles and drones. A new and, let's be honest, a much more dangerous era has just begun.
And I guess this is the question we're all left with. For decades, that balance of terror kept a lid on a direct war. Well, that balance is gone now. So is this the ultimate failure of deterrence? Or is this what deterrence actually looks like, when the gloves finally come off, revealing the terrifying, real face of modern state-on-state warfare?